We are inviting introductions in the chat, your name, your pronouns, and your locations. We would like, you to offer land acknowledgement if you are familiar with that, with what land you're on, what occupied territory, what unceded territory that you are on. We will be posting a link in the chat to Native Land CA, which you can go to and view and look up your location if you're not familiar with that process. So again, we invite you to continue introducing yourself in the chat. Get familiar. We'll hope to kind of capture some familiarity with one another and with ourselves in this space. So please continue to do that. And we also invite you in your introduction, if there's any other acknowledgement, so again, name, pronoun, location, your land acknowledgement, and any one other acknowledgement you might want to lift up in this space, we will invite you to do that now. And so as we're introducing ourselves, we want to go ahead and just ground ourselves in the forces, systems, and people, all of the organizing that has brought us together, and that has overcome the technical challenges this morning. This has been acknowledgement that, of the hidden and unseen forces. We want to go ahead and show gratitude for one another, the people and groups historical and present that allow us to be here, that allow us, that whose shoulders we stand. We're acknowledging that we're on occupied territory. We're acknowledging our own stories, our families, our ancestors, our communities, all of those places that we are organizing that need to be acknowledged. We are acknowledging that this land was built on labor that was stolen, folks who toiled without just compensation. We're acknowledging that we are rooted in an economic system that is deeply unequal and accumulated by stealing and exploiting labor. And so again, this is an opportunity to acknowledge the shoulders on which we stand. And with that, just furthering the grounding, this is an invitation to breathe together. So your first breath, notice your body and your breath. Your second breath, notice the space that you're in and something that keeps you grounded or present. Might be a plant, family, photo, glass of water. To my right, I have a picture of myself as a child, and to my left, I have a painting that my father did in college. Third breath. Remember why you signed up for the workshop. Fourth breath. Remember that you are worthy of your own bodily autonomy, of having your needs met, of the product of your labor, and of our collective liberation. Fifth breath. Notice the other humans holding this virtual space together, bringing our own intentions and expectations. Remember that our liberation is bound up together, mine with yours, ours with one another. Sixth breath. Notice your body and your breath once more, and feel free after those breaths to continue sharing any insights or additional acknowledgements that you have in the chat. And with that, I want to go ahead and transition now to the trainer intro and expectations. And so I'll go ahead and introduce myself because you don't know who I am fully yet. My name is, and if you want to transition the slide there, my name is Michael Tekin-Strode. I am he, him. I am a board member of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network. I'm also coordinator of the Cola-Nut Collaborative residing in Southeast Chicago, and I will hand it off to Emily.
Hi, thanks. Yes, Emily Kawano. I'm here in Western Massachusetts. Pronoun is she, hers. I am with Wellspring Cooperative. We're a cooperative developer in Springfield, Mass. I'm also one of the founders of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network and am a co-coordinator. David.
Hey y'all, my name's David. I use they, them pronouns. I'm at the Highlander Center and I'm also on the board of the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network, and just grateful to be sharing space with you. Passing it back to Mike.
Thank you very much, Emily and David. And I did not model, so I just want to, I want to acknowledge again, I'm on the Council of Three Fires territory, which historically stewarded by the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Ottawa, as well as Miami, Menominee, and many other tribes. So yes, with that, just a few participation expectations. I want to acknowledge that we have had to rework this training tremendously from our original idea. We did not anticipate the level of interest that it would generate at the top of the year here. But this is not the type of training where we want you to kind of sit back and watch. This is definitely participatory, definitely engaged. We originally had this scheduled in the context of various breakout rooms. But because we, had a number, such a tremendous amount of registration that came in, we switched to several polls that will happen throughout the meeting. So we'll be using the Poll Everywhere tool in order to draw in your collective input and engagement. We will have some specific sections, some key areas where we'll do some small group discussion. But a lot of the engagement has switched to the polling tool where we can kind of collectively crowdsource ideas and engage with one another. And we also will be sharing the slides with you after training. So you'll receive the slides, you'll receive the recording. So you don't have to feel like you have to drop into your notebook on this. Because hopefully that will maybe disrupt the participation that we want to generate. Our goal is to really create some reproducible materials so that you can take this back to your communities and have conversations about the solidarity with the communities and organizations where you live and where you organize. We are in agreement to, again, share the slides and material. We're seeking full participation. Our liberation is at stake. Everyone is a teacher and a learner in this environment. Self-care and community care, move with the flow as it were. When you're in small groups, just make sure to say your names and pronouns, and if you could describe yourself the first time you speak, that might be helpful to ensure we're really being a fully accessible space. One mic, and please, loving speech. Balance good listening with sharing openly. And if there are any challenges when you're in the breakout rooms, please, drop back into the main room. We are here to support you through this process. And then with that, I invite you, if there are other, needs or other, things that you want to kind of drop into the chat that might be valuable for us to know about access, please do share those things. And with that, I'm going to pitch it back to David.
All right, y'all. So we want to start with getting to meet a few other people who are here today and by sharing some of our experiences. So the Highlander Center is rooted in the methodology of popular education, which means we start with the experiences of people and we look for patterns. We find new information and we build our analysis together. And we make plans to change the world based on what we learn from our shared experiences. So this is a workshop about transforming our economy, about changing the very nature of how economics and governance systems play out, how they play out for us, for our families and our communities. So following the popular education spiral, we're going to start sharing our experiences. We're going to look for patterns all through the workshop, and we're going to share some about the Solidarity Economy Framework. We're going to look at some mind-blowing examples of this work happening all across the country and the globe. And hopefully you'll learn something new. And then we're also going to end with action. What's next? What's next for us? What next steps can each of us take to build the solidarity economy where we are? But before we get that, toward taking next steps, we got to start with our own experience. So we're going to get into small groups right now and do some introduction conversations. So when you get into your small group, introduce yourself, share something, maybe 2 to 3 minutes each, about your experience living in this economy. What is the economy to you? What has this economy meant for you and your family and your community? Any questions about that, please drop them in the chat. Otherwise, Hafida is going to set up our small groups and get us into breakout rooms.
So the first one is about private ownership of the, sometimes we just say the MOPS, the means of production. So that's like your land, your buildings, your tools, your equipment. Okay? Private ownership of the stuff that you need to produce. The second one is wage labor, which means that these people, the workers, are hired and they're paid a wage, but they don't own the means of production. Right there, with those two things, you have the private owners, which are the capitalists, and you have wage labor folks, which are the workers, right? And right there, you have class struggle, right? Inevitably, you have class struggle given this, this particular system, okay? The third one is about profit maximization. The fourth one is about commodity production, which means that this system is producing for sale, not for use. So if you grow something, if you have a garden and you eat you eat the food that you grow, that's not commodity production. You're growing it for your own use, not for sale. So capitalism is about commodity production. And the last thing is that all of these transactions are mediated through the market, right? Supply and demand, and prices fluctuate with supply and demand and market exchange. Okay, you need all five of these. I have heard people, for example, who belong to a worker co-op, who would say, "Oh yeah, we're a capitalist business because we engage in commodity production, or because we engage in market exchange." That is not true. What does not exist in a worker cooperative is this division between the owner, the capitalist, and the workers, right? So that class dichotomy is not there. So that's why I'm saying you need all of these. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next slide. That defines capitalism. And this next, so we can take down the word cloud. So why does it matter? Why do we need to think about and have clarity about what is capitalism? So a lack of clarity about capitalism can easily lead to just reforming and thereby strengthening capitalism. Right? If you don't know what you're trying to change and you don't know the roots of the problem, then it's pretty likely you're going to just try to fix things and make things as good as possible, and you won't get to the root of the problem. So an example of this, a historic example, is the New Deal, right? So the New Deal, where lots of good things happened, right? Lots of social welfare programs, a lot of regulations, a lot of things, a lot of good, laudable things happened through the New Deal. But the New Deal also saved capitalism. It was a time when socialism was strong and growing. The movement and organizing around socialism was really strong. And by absorbing actually the platform and the policies of the socialists and making it part of capitalism, it actually quelled a lot of that resistance and organizing and rebellion. And it just seemed like, okay, capitalism can be a kinder and gentler. So it is important to have a sense of what the long-term vision is. And solidarity economy is about a post-capitalist vision. We're really clear that capitalism will never get us to that more just and sustainable economy and world that we're hoping for. And so we need to be thinking about transformative reforms. It's also sometimes called non-reformist reforms. So thinking about reforms in terms of that long-term vision of eventually getting beyond capitalism. We can do better than capitalism, and we can overcome some of the worst aspects of capitalism. A current day example of where this is important, just an example, is the Green New Deal. It's really important, right? The Green New Deal is possibly going to be like the New Deal, and it will again shore up capitalism unless it is framed in terms of challenging some of those fundamental dynamics and structures of capitalism. For example, democratization of the economy. So we can have greener sources of energy and reduce our dependence on fossil fuels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if we do not also address sort of some of the ownership and control at the same time, those issues, and equity and democracy, right, then we will end up just strengthening capitalism instead of building towards a new system. That's why it is important to have some clarity about what is capitalism, and therefore greater clarity about what is post-capitalism and what is solidarity economy, which is very, very clear in its definition about being post-capitalist. Okay, I am going to stop there and hand it off to Mike.
Okay, thank you very much, Emily. And we can go ahead and proceed to the next image. We're going to have a guided visualization at this point. And so, all right, so I want you to go ahead. You can feel free to close your eyes and, you will hear me reading this, or if you need to see the text on the screen, it is there and available for you. So this is just a moment for some guided visualization just before we do one more word cloud. So close your eyes and just imagine that your vision for a just and sustainable world has come to pass. You are there in this new world. Breathe, breathe deeply. What do you smell? What do you hear? As you're walking, what's beneath your feet? Is it a sidewalk or some pedestrian path? Is it grass? Is it a forest floor? What are you seeing as you walk along? Cars, bikes, buildings? What do the buildings look like? If you're passing by a park, what do those parks look like? And who's using them? The people. Who do you see? Do you know them? Do you have a relationship? As you arrive at whatever your chosen destination is, what have you come here to do? Work, visit, volunteer, shop, vote, whatever. And as you take a moment to think about all of those things, we're going to go ahead and transition to the next slide. Just think about this question: what values underpin your vision of another world? And we will go into another poll everywhere, and we'll ask you to put your top 5 values for a solidarity economy in that poll. So whatever values you felt within you in response to that visualization that you just had, please go ahead and enter them into this next poll. Okay, here are the values coming in. All right. So we're getting some things about equity and regeneration, sharing, interdependency, care. And hopefully you have an opportunity to refresh the page so you're able to see the link that we are looking at. Yes, so I'm just, looking on my side, mutual, collective care, interdependence, sharing, care, green, livable wages, community, relationships, connected, consent, the undercommons, locality, love, collective, interdependence, safety, compassion, sharing, cooperation, love, interdependence. There's a lot going on there, and that's beautiful. And so, as we're kind of thinking about all of these values that are coming in, and I see you've had a wonderful opportunity to upvote things that you're like, yes, this is the top. Collectivism is rapidly, rising to the top. I want you to compare what you're seeing on your screen and what we're voting on with these solidarity economy values, that we'll be kind of just grounding ourselves in. And I'll explain more about where these values come from in just a moment. But um, so these values are solidarity, and we've broken it down in terms of some elements of solidarity: cooperation, mutualism, reciprocity, altruism, symbiosis. You know, um, uh, Rooted in common struggle with one another, and looking out for our collective well-being. Democracy and politics, work and community. Equity in all dimensions: race, class, gender, ability. Sustainability embraces the rights of Mother Earth. And then pluralism. This is not one size fits all, as the Zapatistas note, a world in which many worlds fit. So these are the grounding values of the solidarity economy. Yes, and so where do these values come from? The values that we have just spoken about are rooted in a definition. This definition came from a two-year consultation process between spaces like the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network and RAPES. RAPES is the international network which holds social solidarity economy. But this two-year process came out with this definition for solidarity economy: a framework connecting practices and people aligned with SE values. Those values we've just discussed: solidarity, democracy, equity, sustainability, pluralism, articulating a post-capitalist world. So those bold elements, are really important areas there. Framework, practices, and people together. SE values, post-capitalist world, full stop. Solidarity economy is a post-capitalist framework. We are not tweaking around the edges. We are shifting the entire dynamic beyond capitalism. And some of the folks who have engaged in this global movement include, RAPES, which we've just noted is an international network of the social solidarity economy, ILO, the International Labor Organization, and their SSE Academy, the UN Task Force on Solidarity Economy. In certain, state constitutions like Bolivia and Ecuador, there are some elements of solidarity economy. And in solidarity economy national policy frameworks. And so some of you who are on the listserv for the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network may have seen that there are some people who we had an opportunity to engage with Brazil around some aspects of this solidarity economy. So hopefully you are aware, or you've seen that come up on the listserv. All right, and we rapidly have dispatched with that unusual screen share. Yes. So how does solidarity economy show up in our lives, right? On our social media platforms, when this event was being promoted, you saw these graphics that were available there. Solidarity economy is not capitalism. But then other aspects: transformative justice, community control, worker ownership, community land trusts, credit unions, participatory democracy, tenant unions beyond landlords, and ideally housing cooperatives. So I'll just kind of, give you a sort of day in the life of the solidarity economy from my experience here in Chicago. I am currently a board member on the Dill Pickle Food Cooperative. The Dill Pickle Food Cooperative, which receives some of its funding from the Chicago Community Loan Fund, which is a local community development, financial institution. That loan fund providing support for the Dill Pickle. Also, then the Dill Pickle can support things like Brave Space Alliance, which is a Black trans-led organization here in Chicago. you know, and providing food support for their mutual aid programs. Their mutual aid programs supporting many communities on the southeast side of Chicago. At certain points, the Dill Pickle has also supported, using our Roundup at the Register program, Shy Fresh Kitchen, which is a worker-owned cooperative here in Chicago. You know, that is owned by, largely owned, majority owned by women, and women who are formerly incarcerated. So those are, you know, ways that, you know, this is sort of an ecosystem challenge. Solidarity economy exists in all sectors, but it's really important that these sectors not be isolated. The ecosystem impact that we want, and the replication that we want, only comes when all of these different players work together. You know, when it's food cooperatives and worker cooperatives, you know, and skill shares, and the time bank that, you know, I work on, resident-owned communities, participatory budgeting. You know, all of these things have to interact and engage with one another, in order that, you know, in order that we can strengthen and build what is a solidarity economy, and not just, you know, these small sectoral wins, but, you know, a really transformative and impactful process, that, you know, that we can all ground in, and we can all support and thrive in. All right, and so with that, we can go ahead and pitch to Emily for the different systems.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yeah, so this is a graphic just saying that there are lots of different tendencies, different models, and I've seen some of the questions in the chat have been asking, how is solidarity economy different from socialism or green eco-socialism? I mean, there are gazillion, you might not be able to read all this, but things like new economy, community economy, green economy, donut economy, you name it, right? There's a million, right? And it can be really confusing. So the first thing to note is that solidarity economy is a big tent. And so it embraces, or it would happily um, uh, take in and accept and support a lot of those things. Um, so some people consider themselves, I mean, you know, or members of the Green Eco-Socialist, I'm not sure if they call themselves party, but organization. Some people are other brands of socialists, but some people don't adopt any particular ism at all. And we also want to be a space for people who haven't quite decided, for whatever reason, right? They might not be happy with this label or that label. There are anarchists, there are autonomista folks, I mean, there are so many different frameworks. What is common is that they are all post-capitalist, so they are all recognizing that we all share a belief that capitalism is inherently not going to get us there, and they all support those values, right? So it's grounded in those values. There are some of these frameworks that are agnostic, or they just don't explicitly talk about capitalism. So for up until very recently, New Economy didn't talk about capitalism. And so people that were involved with New Economy Coalition ran the gamut, for people who believed that we can reform capitalism to people that were more on the solidarity economy side and believed that we have to move beyond. New Economy Coalition has just recently made the decision to be full on solidarity economy. But that was a shift, right? And so there's lots of organizations that are talking about system change. They're talking about a new or a next economy or a green economy, but they skirt the question about whether their vision is capitalist, like a reformed, improved capitalism, which is fine, right? That's one position to take. But if you don't have the conversation, then probably it's a, you know, it's a even bigger tent, right? And you run that gamut of people who believe that we can reform, all the way to a solidarity economy position of post-capitalism. So next slide. So So why solidarity economy? Why would we be making this case for the importance of solidarity economy as a framework? Um, a lot of these other frameworks are starting with something in particular, right? For example, donut economics, if anybody knows what that is. Really nice. It's not that solidarity economy would object to donut economics. It's really talking about what is sustainable, what is the carrying capacity of the planet, but it really centers that sustainability. It completely, it doesn't grapple with our current dominant system or have any analysis of getting beyond it. Um, so there's lots of examples like that where the focus is on a particular thing like green or local, or it's just about democracy. And one thing that's important about solidarity economy, you'll note that there are these 5 values, right? It's not just one or another, right? Because you can have green and sustainable without it being democratic or equitable, and you can have cooperation without it being sustainable or um, equitable, right? So that's why from the get-go, solidarity economy is talking about these 5 values, and they're all interconnected and they're all important. Um, solidarity economy is inherently about pluralism, and this Zapatista phrase, a world in which many worlds fit, is absolutely something that we hold to. And as a result, solidarity economy tends to be non-dogmatic, humble. It's grounded in real experiences, and it's evolving, right? So we can try something, maybe it works, and other people adopt it. Maybe it doesn't work, and we say, okay, well, we learned, right? So it's evolving. It's a very big tent, and it includes and overlaps with many other approaches that are talking about transformation and a more just and sustainable economy and world. So more broadly defined than traditional economics. We're really talking about the economy, harking back to the original definition, the Greek definition, which meant management of the household. So how do you manage your world, your whole world? Um, solidarity economy is clearly defined, even though there's lots of, because of the pluralism commitment, it will look very different in different places, in different times, in different cultures, different realities. But at the same time, there is a common foundation of understanding that defines solidarity economy. So it's clearly defined in terms of its values and being post-capitalist. And the last thing is that it's very real, right? So it's a growing global movement. And it's not, I guess it's both bottom up and it's top down, right? Like, so there are people pushing policies. There are lots of practitioners that are actually building this on the ground. There is an increasing awareness of really interconnecting the build of solidarity economy with also the resist and the fight back of social movements. So there's a lot of there to solidarity economy. There's a lot of momentum all throughout the world. And I would say the last thing that I'll say, I think this is a moment, right? We are experiencing this moment of multiple crises, from the pandemic to the racial justice uprisings to the slide towards fascism that we've seen so clearly, to the economic crisis that's happening because of the pandemic, and has been, so many people have been in crisis for so long. So multiple crises converging. And what that creates as an opportunity to push forward and articulate a new and different narrative. People are questioning capitalism. People are questioning, especially neoliberal model of capitalism. And it's a time when there's a huge amount of interest in solidarity economy. So I don't think we mentioned that for this webinar, we had over 850 registrations. And when we planned this, we were planning on like 20 to 25 participants. So it just, I mean, we just had to laugh when we saw these numbers just going off the chart. But I think it is indicative of how much interest there is in in solidarity economy and a different narrative that's about people and planet rather than private capital and growth and profits. So I will stop there.
And so, I did a thing earlier, where I made the sort of mistake of naming cooperatives very early on in the solidarity economy, which generally fuses people into cooperatives as the only thing that the solidarity economy represents. It is not. It is a big tent. It is many different practices. And so this image that you see on the screen, I recognize that it may be slightly small, but this is the design by Carolyn Woolard. But it's an illustration of the solidarity economy. It's a pinkish purple illustration of people experiencing the solidarity economy. There are several buildings with different names and folks going about their days on bikes or walking. We see a building that's labeled trade school, where we can imagine people are bartering their skills and their knowledge out to one another. Next door to that building is one that says community radio, where people might go to share their ideas or music over the public airwaves. Traveling across to the left side of the scene, you see a study center where further learning might be happening. And that study center sits next to a food co-op which might treat its workers fairly or cater to people with different dietary restrictions. There's a medic tent where perhaps people are getting ear acupuncture. There is a maker space where people might be making things, a barter club, a table that talks about community land trusts and a credit union. There are some community garden plots. There are lots of things happening here. And what we want to, ask here is, what's missing for you in this image? What's not represented here for you? And so we can transition to the next slide there. And so you can go to the poll once more, and what's missing, or what was missing from that vision of the solidarity economy for you? What needs would you like to have met inside of the solidarity economy? You got medical research and green spaces, huge vegetable garden, education, food forests, childcare. What's missing from this vision of the solidarity economy for you? Accessible space, there are too many stairs, mutual learning, medical research, alternative currencies, arts and performance spaces, cooperative farms, technology, water, dance club, food production, restorative justice, ramps for access, coastal banking, more nature. And we will definitely surely link to the image inside of the presentation that we send out. So you will have these materials as they come out. All right, and so this is what a solidarity economy is about. So even though I named some aspects of what I am experiencing here in Chicago in the context of the solidarity economy, ultimately solidarity economy is rooted in those values, that solidarity, that equity, that participatory democracy. So we are building an economy that meets our needs, right? Meets our collective social, economic, cultural needs. And so when we are building this solidarity economy, you know, even though I've expressed what I am working on, what the places where I organize, that may not actually be what you need. And it's really important that we recognize that a solidarity economy, just because we put up a list of practices that are in the solidarity economy, it's about the values. And the values say that, you know, if something's missing in those practices, then, you know, we have a responsibility collectively to engage with people who are impacted by that absence and bring those needs to the fore. And so with that, we can go ahead and transition, and I will hand it off to David for the examples and practices.
Wow, just seeing all these amazing things coming through the word cloud. Thanks y'all so much for contributing. So this next activity, we're going to get into small groups and get familiar with some solidarity economy examples. So most of these are from the Beautiful Solutions cards, which is part of the Mapping Our Futures curriculum that Highlander and People's Hub and Beautiful Solutions have worked on together. What we're going to do is we're going to break you up into groups, and each group is going to have a letter, groups of 6 people. Each group will have a letter. So when you click the link into the slides, what you'll want to do is go to the slides that represent your group's letter. And once you get into the slides, you're gonna read through the different cards you have. You'll have 4 to 5 Beautiful Solutions cards. We call these the stepping stones. So they're not necessarily, you know, fully in utopia yet, because we still live in capitalism. So they're solutions on our way to the world that we imagine. They represent the values of the solidarity economy. And you can read through the 4 to 5 cards quietly, like each person just read on your own, or you can have each person present a card out loud to the group. However you want to do it in your group is just fine. And then in your groups, you want to talk about which one of your cards is the most mind-blowing to you. Just like what is mind-blowing about these examples? What do you already see reflected in your community? Like what's already happening? And what's possible? Like which of these do you think might be possible where you are? And then when you come back, if you could have someone in your group share back your group's most mind-blowing example. So pick someone in your group to kind of type up a brief summary of your solution, which one you think is the most mind-blowing and why, and share that back in the chat when we come back. And then we'll also be asking what makes these possible. And we'll be doing that as a word cloud to kind of generate a kind of recipe for solidarity economy. So be thinking about what are your top 3 ingredients that are required to make these possible. So yeah, so the Beautiful Solutions cards are from the Mapping Our Futures curriculum, and we'll put a link in the chat to that curriculum. But Hafida is going to set up the rooms now. Goose Island workers taking over a factory, purchasing it, and then throwing out the bosses. Yes, these factory takeovers are pretty mind-blowing. And it looks like another group had a similar mind-blowing, the Argentina worker-owned factory, the recuperative factory movement in Argentina. From the Mint group, Zimbabwe veterans post-war using demobilization allowances to start a collective farm. What if we used stimulus checks to fund our own collective well-being or start a farm or co-op? Yes, what a great question and inspiration. Thanks so much for sharing that idea back with this group. Let's see, Group A, MST and communal land ownership. We had no idea that kind of work was being done in Brazil. Yeah, Brazil has a very robust solidarity economy ecosystem, and we're just, you know, this Solidarity Economy Network just had an exchange with them recently, and would love to bring more stories from Brazil to share with folks in the US. Says non-productive land should be used for a larger social function. So they occupy non-productive land that's not doing anything, and they create cooperative farms, houses, schools, and communities. They just move in and do it. Yes, so awesome. So mind-blowing. And we've seen that in the US too, right? Like the mom's housing occupation in Oakland, and other just incredible examples of like occupation as a strategy toward creating a collectively owned project in solidarity economy. Great, we'll keep sharing those in the chat. We're going to move to the word cloud to generate our own, very specific to this group, unique heirloom family recipe for solidarity economy. So get your recipe, get your ingredients ready. We want to know, what are your top 3 ingredients for a solidarity economy? What are the things that, in reading through these examples in your discussions in your small groups, what do you think is required to actually make these possible? Like what needs to be in place? What are the ingredients? What are your top 3 ingredients? And we're gonna drop that in the chat in a second. So you have that link. And just while you're getting started there, I wanna share a couple more things that just came in the chat. So the green wave restoration ocean farming is the most mind-blowing, because it's like farming in the ocean, right? It says, as such, pollution and other factors impact the common ocean agriculture, aqua farming. And reminds us how truly interconnected we are and ought to be working together. Yes. So thank you for that. And then another one from the Grape Group, really excited about the community land trusts from across the US. There were 56 of them in the 50s, so now there are 1,600 of them. Yes, that's great. And the African proverb, it is the one who lives in the house that best knows where the roof leaks. Yes, that's a great proverb. Thank you for sharing that back with the group. All right, so these incredible ingredients that are going into building this new world and making these beautiful solutions possible. What are we seeing on the word cloud? We're seeing care, collective care, courage, seeing commitment, process, yes, very much so, community, communication, conflict. Yeah, we learn a lot through conflict and moving through it together. Mutual, seeing, it's moving around. I'm seeing agreement. I'm seeing imagination. Yes, absolutely. Like having the space to actually imagine that things could be done differently. I'm seeing decision making and consensus. I'm seeing team, I think it moved, teamwork and teams, anti-racist, yes, being rooted in these values of anti-oppression. I see trust and respect. I see love in there. Such awesome ingredients, y'all. Thanks so much for, I see power. Ooh, yes, power. In many of these, it takes taking back power, right, to make some of these possible. So let's stop the slide, not because we don't want to see more of your brilliant answers, but just for time's sake. Thank you so much for helping us contribute to this incredible heirloom family recipe. We'll be sharing this back with y'all. And we wanna kind of pivot to that next step in the popular education spiral, where we think about how are we gonna take action? Like, what are we gonna do next, right? And so we wanna do this in a word cloud too. What's our next step toward building this kind of solidarity economy in our communities? What's your next step? And I want you to think about this and take it very seriously. Like, what's a commitment you can make to yourself and to the rest of us and to our world, because we need it. So take a minute to think about that. We're gonna drop the link in the chat once more, just in case you need that. And because this is a word cloud, it's going to break up your answers into all the different words. So we'll get to see, we won't get to see the content of what you're saying, but we'll get to see some of it. It looks like, yeah.
I just adjusted the visual that way, we can.
Oh, great. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you so much. Organize, dialogue, education. Yeah, we hope that some of the tools that we share after this workshop can help you support support those education and dialogue next steps. Mutual aid, yes, actually doing the work, helping support people to support each other, getting involved, talking to others. Again, hope these resources are helpful. Investing in equity, envisioning, yeah, that's a really important step. Glad to hear somebody's going to spend some time visioning what they want to see. Experimentation, lovely. Research, absolutely, such an important part of the process of building something new. It's like, what do we have now? What's this thing that's in the way of us really creating what we want to see? We have to research and learn about it, investigate. Defense, yes, we have to defend. If our communities are under attack, that's got to be the first step. Conversation, experiment, learn. Such great responses. Keep them coming. We want to know what your next step is. Outreach, universal basic income. That would make it a lot easier to build this world, right? Strengthen relationships. Yeah, it's hard to do any of this organizing without relationships. That's something that worker co-op owner April Taylor from the Wild Fig in Lexington taught me. Like if you can't start anywhere else, start with building relationships, because that's where all this is founded on. Connect, finding a local organization that's already taking steps. That's great. And share that back with us. We would love to know what you find in your research. And we would love to know if you do have these conversations locally, if you'd like some help, or if you want some resources, or if you just want to share what you did with us, we'd love to hear that. Study, learn, conversation. All right, y'all. This is so great. We really appreciate you sharing these in this poll everywhere. We hope you continue having these discussions and continue bringing these conversations to your community and your networks. So like we said, we're definitely going to share the resources coming out of this workshop with you to help you do that. We really want your support in thinking about how this went today. Like, how did this go for you? And how could we have made it a better experience for you and for everybody on the call? So if you can share some appreciations for what you liked today, some ideas of what you might shift or what you might change or what you want us to think about. If you can share those in the chat, you can also share those in an evaluation form. And I'm going to paste the evaluation form link in the chat now. So we'd love to see some of those in the chat. And also we really encourage you to click the link on that form to the evaluation form and give us a little bit more of your insights coming out of this call. That would be really helpful. Like we said, we had 850 people sign up for this call, so we know we're going to do it again, and we want to keep improving and making it better for everybody. So if you can, and already seen some really great stuff in the chat. Jackson's wondering how you can compensate us. That's a great question, Jackson. I'm going to let Emily share like a link to donate. Emily, if you're still here and you can do that. Interactive and useful. Time flew by. Yeah, that's a great sign, right? Like we were having fun. Explanation of SE and how it relates to socialism was helpful and clarifying. I'm really glad. Grateful for us putting together these resources, the variety of tools, and the time with other people. Afita's brilliant tech support. Some new questions coming in the chat, and we'll try to get those or respond to those as best we can. Appreciated the graphic and the concise definition, the interactivity, really, really great. Keep them coming. These very specific appreciations and recommendations for changes is super, super helpful. We believe feedback is a gift, and we really, really, really do take it seriously and really appreciate it. Meanwhile, the stepping stones are still coming in. I love that. I just like looked over and like, wow, there's new steps. Recognizing the solidarity economy I've been part of, yes. So we're just being overwhelmed by like really amazing ideas and feedback. Is there a Discord channel there? So there is a listserv. When you registered, we actually asked you, can we put you on the listserv or not? So, and we'll make sure that some kind of link to sign up in case you said no the first time is included in the follow-up materials. Yeah, if you've got to jump, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you.
So can I just say about
Yeah.
support? Thank you so much for that question. That is so nice. That's really great. I just looked on our website and we don't even have a donate page. So I don't know. We'll be in touch. If you want to donate, we're mostly volunteer, but support is always welcome.
Yes, and I'll just jump in and say we can make sure that we do that in our follow-up email. We'll definitely make sure that we have ways that, folks can continue to show up for the U.S. Solidarity Economy Network and one another, and hopefully, support the conversations that you're having back in your home terrains, home organizations. And as you are, for those who are still here and those who are exiting, this is just a brief closing, a brief breath together, 3 breaths. So 3 breaths together. First one. 1 for showing up today. Second breath. 1 for everyone else who showed up. Third breath. 1 for being powerful together, and we stand in solidarity with you. We are done.
So feel free to come off mute and just give some love as you sign off. We're going to play some music, but thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This was great.
Hey, see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.